Kalispera. I think the ώρα είναι. It's such an honor to be here and to be with you. I must say, just before we begin, it's really an inspiration as someone who's second, third generation Greek American to see people from all parts of the world who are Greek in origin coming to Greece to talk about how we can come together and support Greece and the future. So yes, the topic of today is energy. And energy is one of the most fast-moving topics in the world today. I'm a energy and environmental professional from the United States. I've worked on policy for the last 8 years. And in the last few years, I've been increasingly interested in energy and environment in Greece, which is a very important topic because Greece is impacted by climate and significant environmental impacts, but also it's becoming an increasing leader on these topics. So today, the way we'll structure this is I wanted to offer some remarks to help discover with you why energy, because I assume most of you are not specialized in this. And then we'll move into an interactive discussion with our guests and panelists on the stage, and also I would welcome questions from the audience. So to begin, I have 5 points for you of why energy. So energy is a very important topic for the world right now because of AI. I know it's something we've talked about on the previous panels. Energy is interrelated with AI because you need a lot of energy to power data centers, which power AI. Without energy, there's no data centers and there's no AI, and so technological advancement will slow or install. It's also a big geopolitical issue because the countries that have more energy will be able to advance this innovation. And right now there's a race at the global stage of who can bring more energy online to build data centers and also unlock AI. So actually the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, says that it's not the inventions of AI that will limit it, but actually it's whether or not we can meet energy demand. So this is unlocking a huge conversation in the United States and Europe and the world of how do we do that? How do we bring more solar, more wind, more fossil energy, more nuclear online? And it's really rewired the whole conversation around these topics so quickly. Greece is implicated in this, and this is my second point. Greece has become a regional energy hub. I don't know, from a few different perspectives. First, it's become a natural gas hub, importing natural gas from the United States and from Central Asia, and displacing Russian gas throughout Europe. This is a really critical geopolitical development. Without it, Greece would not be as relevant as it is today on the regional stage. Also, Greece has become a leader in renewables. Greece's solar and wind are huge power sources. I mean, in the summer, you've seen the sun, you've seen the wind. It's extremely powerful. So Greece actually in the summer is becoming a net energy exporter, which is, I think, the first time in its history, which means that it's able to wield its strength on the national stage. This leads me to the third point. There's huge global changes, and there's huge changes here in Greece. What does this mean for young people? Well, it means opportunity and challenges that need to be solved. We're going to need entrepreneurs to figure out how do you bring on electricity to the grid fast. We need people to figure out how do you build out the grid and upgrade it using technologies like AI. We're going to need lawyers to help facilitate these deals. There was a big announcement a few weeks ago about natural gas, and I actually had a little bit of exposure to the agreements between the US and Greece, and there were a lot of lawyers calling last minute on the specifics. You're going to need people in engineering and community engagement, people in maritime thinking about energy, because Greece is a maritime hub. So young people have many, many pathways going forward on this topic. At the same time, and this is my fourth point, young people are also protectors of the environment. Young people are often organized around this. How do we advance an energy transition and do it in a way that's sustainable. We need to be able to flick on the light in the morning and to power a ChatGPT at 11 o'clock at night when we're doing our homework. But we need to figure out how we can power all of this in a way that's not just excessively polluting. And this is going to require ingenuity and creativity and entrepreneurialism. And that is where you guys come in. And fifth, and this is actually the point I really wanted to emphasize, this ingenuity, Greek ingenuity, can help change the world. There's one great example that I'll give on the Greek diaspora and energy, which is the story of George Mitchell. George Mitchell, in the 90s, changed the trajectory of energy for the whole world. Why? How? He discovered fracking, hydraulic fracturing, which is the process of drilling down into the earth and finding bubbles of natural gas and be able to extract them. He was the son of a Greek immigrant from Behrakis, I think in the Peloponnese. He got into the oil business in the mid-20th century, and then at the end of it, he was able to figure out, which was a mystery to people, how do you actually extract all this energy that's underneath the ground? And he did it. He became a billionaire. He changed the trajectory of geopolitics in the world by this invention, by making America energy independent and also displacing a lot of power from OPEC countries. So this is actually a story of hope too on the environment, in the following way, and actually Mr. Mitchell was a big proponent of the environment, because it actually helped to lower carbon emissions by offsetting coal. Anyways, a lot of technicality, but the point is that Greeks can help solve the world's energy and environmental problems, and we have a big opportunity to do that. So I was hoping to maybe talk a little bit about this, and I'll sit down, and the opportunities. So let's begin. Okay. So, hello. I was hoping to start with why energy? Why are you interested in energy? And Christoforos, you have an interesting story. And tell us about what you study and why this field interests you.
Hello? All right. So the reason, first, it's a two-part answer. So the first thing, I'm interested in physics as a whole because I think that I found a purpose in understanding how the universe works. Now, the reason I want to specialize in nuclear energy is that I found it interesting, how you can produce so much energy with so little damage to the environment. Most reactor plants, they produce an enormous amount of CO2 when they're powered by coal. But when you have a nuclear fission reactor that uses uranium, all you get at the end is a few chunks of decomposed metal. It's so much more sustainable and healthy for the world. So that's why I find it interesting.
It is very interesting. And actually, the university you're at, Purdue, has one of the most famous Greek diaspora professors on nuclear, Professor Tsoukalas, who is one of the leading researchers on nuclear power. And actually, this is another great example of ingenuity within the diaspora. If you look at the nuclear energy industry, there's a lot of really smart Greeks who are on the cutting edge. This is actually, I think this is powering what Greece's transition to nuclear, which I think will happen over the next several years. That's fantastic. And I wish you luck in your very difficult physics study.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, following up on this, though, so there's a lot of career paths that will come out of energy in the environment. And I was wondering, Myrto, if you would maybe talk a little bit about how you see energy in career pathways. And then we'll also go to some of the others.
Hello, I would like to speak in Greek if I may.
No.
Okay. Λοιπόν, κοιτάξτε, εγώ είμαι... Can I talk a little about myself, because I have no correlation to the subject matter whatsoever. So, εγώ είμαι απόφοιτος νομικής Αθηνών. Έχω περάσει τα 22 από τα 24 μου χρόνια στην Ελλάδα, οπότε είμαι γέννημα θρέμα, το αρτόφιο. Τα τελευταία 2 χρόνια είμαι στη Γαλλία και μέσω μεταπτυχιακών σπουδών. Και τώρα στην ουσία παρακολουθώ τη σχολή των δικηγόρων για να ασκήσω το επάγγελμα του δικηγόρου στη Γαλλία. Πόσοι συνάδελφοι πιάσα στο πάνελ. Στην ουσία, στον τομέα της ενέργειας, το μόνο πρόβλημα εντός εισαγωγικών είναι ότι σε καμία νομική της Ελλάδας, καμία από τις τρεις δηλαδή, δεν υπάρχει κάποιο μεταπτυχιακό πρόγραμμα στο δίκαιο της ενέργειας. Αυτό από μόνο του καθιστά ένα εμπόδιο για τους φοιτητές που θέλουν να ασχοληθούν με τον τομέα αυτό, με αποτέλεσμα είτε να επιλέγουν κάποιο άλλο πρόγραμμα σπουδών, όπως είναι το δίκαιο περιβάλλοντος, και να εξειδικεύονται μέσω της εκπόνησης κάποιας διπλωματικής εργασίας, είτε να φεύγουν κατευθείαν στο εξωτερικό. Για παράδειγμα, στο πανεπιστήμιο που σπούδασα εγώ υπάρχει μεταπτυχιακό στο δίκαιο της ενέργειας, και μάλιστα στη Γαλλία συγκεκριμένα στα μεταπτυχιακά προβλέπεται υποχρεωτική πρακτική άσκηση μέσα στο πρόγραμμα σπουδών, με αποτέλεσμα οι φοιτητές να εισάγονται στην αγορά εργασίας πολύ πιο γρήγορα και πολύ πιο ομαλά, ειδικά στον κλάδο μέσα των νομικών, που είναι απαραίτητο να έχεις ένα δίκτυο για να μπορέσεις να κάνεις τα πρώτα σου επαγγελματικά βήματα.
Excellent. Christoforos, I mean, you tell us a little about your career trajectory too. I mean, you're studying physics. What kinds of pathways are available to you?
So for me, I really only plan on focusing on nuclear energy. You know, and if I were to pursue nuclear engineering, a full-size nuclear power plant is about it takes up a square kilometer and it can employ almost 800 people. You know, there's a lot of different jobs I could do, but what I would like to be, is in the center as a technician, making sure that there are no safety errors, because although it can be very safe for the environment, a single issue or a single instance of cutting costs can lead to catastrophe, which is, it's important for people to care about what they're doing. And I really care about nuclear energy, so, I'd like to be in the center of the works.
And there's a whole industry being created around it. Eugenia, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about career pathways, opportunities that you see from your perspective. You're from Australia, if I'm not mistaken.
Δουλεύει.
Ναι.
Ωραία. Γεια σας, με λένε Ευγενία, είμαι από την Αυστραλία. Θα συνεχίσω στα αγγλικά, γιατί αυτό το λεξιλόγιο είναι δύσκολο.
Ναι, βέβαια.
Ναι, αυτά.
Περάστε.
So, in Australia, renewable energy is really starting to boom. Last year in 2024, we were at, I think, 42% of renewable energy use, like of our total power generation. And we've set a goal for 2030, which is 80%. I think we're going for. It's ambitious, and to achieve that, we're going to really need to improve the infrastructure in the country, because we generate a lot of renewable energy through solar, through wind, hydro power, all of that, but the storage isn't there, so it's being lost, essentially, this energy. So to improve this infrastructure, we need to create all of these jobs. For instance, construction, operation, to maintain these systems. And so by doing that, we can create partnerships, I believe. That's usually, I think, how it's done in Australia, power partnerships. And for instance, there's a corporation in Greece, I think it's called Mytilineos, and they are partnering with Australia to build, I think, some kind of energy grid. That's going to open up a lot of opportunity for people, and I think the diaspora as well, and Greeks as well, to just come together and work on these projects to bring more energy to the Australian consumer. And also, I think AI will bring a lot of job opportunity, because any discussion about AI, especially in renewable energy and I think sustainability, all of that, needs to recognize the amount of resources that AI uses. So if I'm not mistaken, AI, every prompt that you pump into the machine takes 1 bottle of water, I think, to cool down the system. So 1 bottle of drinking water, that's kind of a really big burden on the environment. So we need to come up with, I think, methods of using that sustainably, and that will be a sector for entrepreneurship, I think.
I 100% agree, and we better ask ChatGPT smart questions instead of a silly one. So, no, but it works both ways. I mean, AI demands a lot of energy, but at the same time, it can provide efficiencies that previously were unimaginable by being able to optimize. But you need people to design those systems, and this is where a lot of the entrepreneurships can come from. Actually, I've met a few Greeks since moving to Greece in July who are working in the entrepreneurial space, and it's very interesting because one of the startups is about balancing the grid across Europe, because the European electricity grid has differentials in price and power sources, and Greece actually often gets the brunt of it. And yeah, this Greek entrepreneur, he's trying to figure out a way to make sure the sale of energy is well balanced, and that's being made because he's a data scientist. He's figuring out with very complicated algorithms that I don't understand, but he's probably going to help lower costs of energy for Greeks here. This is absolutely essential, to go back to the stewardship question, because we're at an exciting point of technological advancement, but we also need to do it in a way that is respecting and honoring our shared environment. That actually leads us to our next question. I mean, apart from career paths, what other ways can the Greek diaspora be engaged on this? And Demetrios, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your time in America thinking about these problems.
Of course. I also want to say good morning, George. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
George and I have known each other before. We were both on the alumni executive board of the Pan-Hellenic Scholarship Foundation, which is based in Chicago and donates over $200,000 annually in scholarship to Greek American young adults who are supporting academic excellence. So it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about a few different initiatives that are based in the Chicagoland area in the United States about supporting sustainability efforts and the environment. So one thing that I was actually a part of as staff director at Fenari Camp, which is a Metropolis of Chicago camping ministry, was we're very focused on keeping our campsite environment clean and healthy. So we've organized trash cleanups among our campers to be able to take care of that campsite. We've done diakonia projects, service projects, which support surrounding communities and help uplift them in our Chicagoland area. And we also separate our food waste from our drink waste so that we can better put towards compost efforts that support the farmland in the area. And as it's a green facility, we like to call this our Green Orthodox Initiative, not a Greek Orthodox Initiative, but a Green Orthodox Initiative, which is a little fun play on words that we have. At Ionian Village, which is another camping ministry of the Archdiocese of America, which I spoke about a little bit yesterday during my presentation, we also focus on some sustainability efforts within that campsite. Obviously, we try to keep our camp clean. We try to keep the nearby beach clean as well. We're located next to a public beach, so we always make sure that whatever time the campers spend on location at that beach, we're vigilant in cleaning up after ourselves and protecting here Greece's water. But we also have water sustainability efforts at our camp. As campers are there for an extended period of time, they're gonna have dirty clothes. And our laundry service that we like to call lovingly Choryo-style laundry, village laundry, we have our campers fill up a bucket with water and soap and water rub wash their clothes that way, which saves on the water that would be used in a traditional laundry machine system, but it also saves on the electricity that would have been put towards the spin cycle. And then, obviously, we have the most powerful form of drying through the sun. So we use hang drying to dry the clothes, again, saving on electricity and energy. And then one final thing that I'd like to see developed here in Athens and throughout Greece more are LEED initiative ideas. So LEED is a certification that can go towards buildings called the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design Initiative. It's hosted by the US Green Building Company. And so in the Chicagoland area at my undergraduate institution, the University of Notre Dame, we've really focused on developing architecture with LEED certification in mind. So this involved doing things with our buildings that would limit their energy impact and increase sustainability efforts. So the university has one of the largest green roofs within the state, if not the larger region. And so this means that there's a roof and there's plants that have been put on top of the roof in order to increase the building energy efficiency, improve the air quality of the area around, increase noise reduction for the building, and improve the stormwater management in the area. And Greece and Athens at large can incorporate so many of these LEED initiative ideas to their architecture. Already we've seen in Athens there are buildings that have trees maybe planted on the top or in the sides. There's a really notable one on Sigru that has, I believe, an olive tree sticking out of the side of the building, which not only helps our environment, but it's aesthetically pleasing as well. And beyond Athens, we can also increase our recycling efforts in Greece and throughout Greece. Athens has a recycling system, but there's no reason other cities can't develop this same kind of initiative as well.
Thank you. It reminds me of this tension, which is between, I think, energy advancement and also stewardship, because we obviously have an impact on the planet. We also want to be able to have technologies to be able to run our lives in a more efficient way, to power our ChatGPT searches in a way that's sustainable. So we need bright minds to be able to figure out how to do that. And I think we're at the cusp of a really exciting moment. The question is this, which side of it ends up winning out? And my hope is that we can do all of this in a sustainable way. Actually, in this regard, I wanted to mention a few more entrepreneurs in the diaspora that are doing work on energy and the environment, who I think can be a point of inspiration. So let me tell you a little bit about the AXIOS project, which is an initiative that I co-founded, which aims to galvanize Greeks around environmental and energy challenges in the country. And in this work, actually 2 years ago, we came to Greece and we filmed a mini documentary around climate impacts in Greece. Greece happens to be a climate hotspot because of where it's situated in the Mediterranean, which means it will warm faster and hotter than the world average. This is, I think, a hugely important thing for Greeks of the diaspora, because we should care about the environment through our love for Greece. It's one of the, it's one of the hotspots. The fires burn every summer. It's too hot. Agricultural crops are impacted. So with I think Greeks should have a natural desire to want to care about the environment. And so in this project, our aim is to bring people like yourselves into the movement and help to figure out some of these challenges. And there's a few, I think, exemplary examples besides the one I gave about George Mitchell, who's since passed, who are active today. There's a guy in Chicago, actually, who's part of the Pan-Hellenic Scholarship Foundation Network. His name is Jimmy Samardzis, and he happens to be the CEO of one of the largest sustainable aviation fuel companies. He was, I think, the youngest VP of Delta, of United, and then ended up becoming one of the leads of a very successful sustainable aviation fuel business. Another example, a professor at Yale University, is the godfather of green chemistry, Paul Anastas. He's a Greek American. So there's actually Greeks already very involved on these topics who are trying to figure out how do we advance energy development and also environmental stewardship. So I guess I wanted to also make this a little bit of interactive to the audience as well, because I recognize that energy is a specific topic and can be esoteric. So if there's any questions, please think of them, and then I'm going to go once around the panel, and we'll open it up to questions from the audience. So my last question is, I've mentioned a few people in the diaspora who are working on energy and the environment. What does it mean to have people in your field who are Greek? How does it motivate you? It could be in energy, it could just be in another field, but I think we all can appreciate the value of having another Greek in the field that you're interested in. Myrto, do you want to start if you're interested?
Εννοείται. Καταρχάς, εμένα με εκπλήσει και με χαροποιεί το γεγονός ότι οι Έλληνες δεύτερης και τρίτης γενιάς είναι τόσο ενεργά συμμέτοχοι σε μια τέτοια μεγάλη πρωτοβουλία. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό που ασχολούνται με τέτοια θέματα. Απλά το πρόβλημα είναι ότι μόνο οι Έλληνες δεύτερης και τρίτης γενιάς θα ασχοληθούν όντως, έχοντας αυτά απλά τα συναισθήματα που έχουν για την πατρίδα. Γιατί καλώς ή κακώς οι Έλληνες πρώτης γενιάς με πολύ χαμηλούς μισθούς δεν μπορούμε να κάτσουμε παραπάνω, είναι γεγονός. Και το πρόβλημα στην ενέργεια δεν είναι πώς θα ενισχύσουμε μόνο τις μεγάλες δομές που υφίστανται στα αστικά κέντρα όπως είναι η Αθήνα και η Θεσσαλονίκη, αλλά και πώς θα επεκταθούμε παραμεθόρια. Γιατί, για παράδειγμα, εγώ προσωπικά μένω σε μια πόλη της Γαλλίας που είναι 21η σε έκταση, στο Aix-en-Provence, δεν ξέρω αν το γνωρίζει κανείς. Στην ουσία, μια τέτοια πόλη πρέπει να στοχεύσουμε και στην Ελλάδα, όπως είναι η Βέρεια, όπως είναι η Δράμη, όπως είναι η Καλαμάτα, για να εκμεταλλευτούμε και τους φυσικούς πόρους, αλλά και το εργατικό δυναμικό των παραμεθόριων αυτών περιοχών. Προσωπικά, αν με ρωτάτε, δεν έχω σκοπό να γυρίσω στην Ελλάδα. Ο συνάδελφος, δικηγόρος δηλαδή, εν δυνάμει, λυπάμαι, δεν θα λαμβάνω 600 ευρώ για να ασχολούμαι με τον τομέα της ενέργειας, ενώ μπορώ να το κάνω κάλλιστα στο εξωτερικό, με πολύ υψηλότερες αμοιβές. Καλώς ή κακώς έτσι είναι τα πράγματα. Λυπάμαι που το λέω για τους Έλληνες διασποράς. Η Ελλάδα διώχνει τα παιδιά της, δεν τα κρατάει. Εύχομαι απλά για τις επόμενες γενιές να μπορέσουμε να το αλλάξουμε αυτό και μέσω αυτών των πρωτοβουλειών που είναι πάρα πολύ ωραίες. Αλλά μέχρι να γίνουν πράξη και να υλοποιηθούν, εγώ θα έχω μεγαλώσει στη Γαλλία, θα έχω βρει την οικογένειά μου, θα έχω φτιάξει το σπίτι μου και απλά μετά θα είναι πάρα πολύ αργά και οποιαδήποτε ενδεχόμενη επιστροφή απλά θα έχει καταστεί μια σκέψη που προέκυψε σε μένα την περίοδο που δυσκολευόμουν, δηλαδή τώρα στα 24 μου χρόνια. Δεν θέλω να πω κάτι περισσότερο, ούτε να συγκινήσω το κοινό, αλλά αν μου επιτρέπετε θα ήθελα να παραθέσω μια φράση ενός μεγάλου Έλληνα ποιητή, του Γεωργίου Σεφέρη, όπου και να ταξιδέψω η Ελλάδα με πληγώνει και ελπίζω απλά η διαχρονικότητα αυτής της φράσης η διαχρονικότητα αυτής της όμορφης ποιητικής της φράσης, το όμορφο αυτό λεκτικό σύνολο, να καταστεί ένας όμορφος απόϊχος μιας ιστορικής γλυκύτητας. Αυτό θα πω και αυτά.
Beautiful, beautiful. On the question of having Greeks as examples in your field of study, would Eugenia, Christoforos, Demetrios, would you like to touch on that?
Ωραία. Έλα να σκεφτώ. Νομίζω in the job market, in, I guess, entrepreneurial spaces, a lot of it, I think, is dependent on who you know and networking amongst each other, because as Greeks, έχουμε φιλότιμο και we like to help each other and to bring community into everything that we do. And I think when you bring that into a professional space, you create just this positive feedback loop where we bring each other up and we can create something better because of that. And when you have role models to look up to, you can see other Greek people doing things that help this sector, help renewable energy, because when you see that, you can imagine yourself in that position. And there's a lot of mentorship there. I know how important it is to have Greek mentors and to learn from them and aspire to be like them and then offer that to the new generation, the neolea. And so I think it's crucial. And yeah, I hope that Australia and all these other countries as well that we have represented here will offer that and bring a more renewable future, because it's important. It affects health, it affects just development, and it's so important that we buckle down on this. And yeah,
I agree. Thank you, Christoforos.
So what
I'm going to talk about your friend in the Chicago lab.
So okay, it's somebody that I look up to. I wouldn't say that we would be friends, but I once volunteered at an event of the Hellenic Innovation Network, and this man by the name of Sterios Logothetidis, he came in and he works. First of all, he's a professor at the Aristotle University in Thessaloniki. He's been there for 35 years. But what he also does, he works for this company called Organic Electronic Technologies, and he leads their nanotech center. And what he works on is semi-transparent photovoltaics, which it's like it collects solar energy, but it's something you can put on a window. And for cities like Chicago with skyscrapers that, it's almost 90% windows, that's such a huge source of even more energy that we could be collecting. I focus on nuclear energy. You know, it's my passion. I think it's cool stuff. But you know, there's so much more energy to be found in other areas. And the reason I bring this up is because this man is a professor, but he's also an entrepreneur. He's somebody that I can look up to because he just works so hard. And he's Greek.
I love it. Demetrios?
Thank you. Something that comes to mind to me as someone in the medical field when we consider how Greeks can inspire us and help us to move forward is to look to our history and our past. There's so many names that come to mind in the medical field specifically. Hippocrates, others, I mean, even Capodistrius and his work in the medical field, and modern people who have contributed to Greek medicine, such as the inventor of the Pap smear test. I think when we apply this to an environmental perspective, it's also important to look to Greece's ancient history for inspiration moving forward, with odes to goddesses like Demeter, exalting the earth, the Yi. There's so much that we can obtain from looking to our history in order to move forward into the future.
I 100% agree. So we have about 4 or 5 minutes remaining. I would welcome any questions for us on the panel about energy, environment, and stewardship. Ella.
I don't have much questions. I was just for the ladies, some toilet paper, some
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. That's very sweet. Thank you, very sweet. Thank you.
I'm sorry, guys, this might be a hard question. I love this silence. For Eugenia, that you were talking about the cooling, like different alternatives to cooling to energy, water, right? So, you know about the Perrier effect, the thermoelectric, it's like a way to cool down using electromagnetism, where when you have heat and electricity and current in a way, if you invert the current, the heat also inverts, so you can like bring the heat out of the data center, for example, or the server in this way. And what do you think about data centers in space, which space is really cold and could be used as a way to cool down data centers? And then I have a second question, but just first answer this one.
I'm going to say that this isn't my subject matter expertise. So I actually study law and international studies. So this is more just drawing from my general knowledge. I haven't actually heard about those initiatives, but they sound amazing and we need them because I think the rate that AI is currently growing, we need to stay in the loop and keep up with it because if we're not careful, there's an example in I think the US, I'm not exactly sure where, but there is a little town near an AI center and their water, the water pressure is non-existent. Like it's like little drips coming out of the tap. So those initiatives, if you do know more about them, I'd invite you to speak where I am not an expert, but those sound great. And
well, I was going to jump in and say, this is where Greek ingenuity needs to come in. Someone needs to figure that out. Someone needs to figure out how to cool these very hot data centers that use a lot of electricity. And so this is a career path for young people to sort out. Your second question.
Okay, this is for George and for Christoforos because it has to do with nuclear energy. So you talked about nuclear fission, right? What do you think about nuclear fusion? Because, for example, the tokamak in China was able to create nuclear fusion. Was able to create nuclear fusion and sustain it for like 20 seconds and not produce that much energy. But it's a start, right? And from your perspective, George, I wanted to understand, since you're the founder of AXIOS project, how could we use this invention of nuclear fusion that it's still under the invention, the research part? How could we kind of like economically, socially bring this into the society? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, your question is clear. So I'll repeat for the audience. What do we think about nuclear fusion, which is the next generation of nuclear energy? We've done fission. So yeah, I think the physics major can speak to this in an exciting way.
So when it comes to fusion, I think, you know, I'm really interested in fusion, and I always had a dream that within my lifetime, fusion as opposed to fission could be used to power cities. But Fusion takes a lot more energy to start. Although the output compared to fission is a much higher percent, it's so much more difficult to start, and then it's so much more expensive to keep controlled, you know? So from a physics standpoint, as a physicist, and you know, as with most other physicists, we want fusion, but it's more of an engineering problem of containing it and keeping it going. Could I track back to your cooling question?
Of course.
Yeah, so the first point, the way heat is lost, it has to be conducted into another material. So when there's a hot object in space, a vacuum can't absorb heat because there's no particles in the vacuum for that energy to be transferred to. So things in space usually either stay really hot or they stay really cold. Now, it is, you know, significantly easier to cool things in space, you know, because there's so much more area for particles you place in there to you know, to absorb that energy. But then another interesting thing about cooling is that there, as opposed to, you know, a very, very large nuclear reactor, there's also things called small modular reactors. You know, they're more like 10 meters by 20 meters. And something like that could be, you know, it could be used to power a small island. And theoretically, it could be cooled by the ocean next to the island that it's powering.
That's a really interesting approach. So I have a last question.
I think we've run out of time, but I did want to answer your last question as a closing point, which is, you know, my vision for the Greek diaspora is for us as young people to help solve some of these great challenges that beface us. And I think we see on stage some really bright minds who can help us do that, from the law perspective, from the physics perspective, from within medicine. Every industry will require energy and affects the environment. So it's my hope and desire that the Greek diaspora can help, and you all as young people, stewards of the environment, to do this in a sustainable way. So with that, we're at the end, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, μπορώ να ρωτήσω, can I just ask one question with the permission of κύρια Αξίδια? Μπορεί. Ήταν για τη Μyrto, γιατί άκουσα αυτό που είπες, παρόλο που δεν ήταν μέσα στο θέμα, συγκινήθηκα για αυτά που είπες, γιατί ό,τι και γίνει, δηλαδή γεννήθηκες εδώ, εγώ δεν γεννήθηκα, δεν έζησα στην Ελλάδα, αλλά πονάω σαν Έλληνας για αυτά που έχουν γίνει στην κρίση και πονάω για την νεολαία που φεύγει από την Ελλάδα. Δεν έχω μια λύση για σένα, ούτε για τους Έλληνες που έχουν φύγει, που φεύγουν ακόμα. Θέλω να ξέρω εγώ και εδώ οι άλλοι που είναι της Διασποράς, τρίτης, δεύτερης γενιάς, τι μπορούμε να κάνουμε εμείς οι Έλληνες του εξωτερικού με τα networks μας, με το θέλημα να βοηθήσουμε την Ελλάδα και τους νέους που πονάνε και που παίρνουν αυτή την δύσκολη απόφαση. Τι μπορούμε να κάνουμε εμείς να σας βοηθήσουμε με την ευκαιρία να έχετε κι εσείς ευκαιρίες εδώ στην Ελλάδα και να μείνετε και να κάνετε την ζωή σας εδώ.
Βγάλτε λεφτά, αγοράστε εκείνη την περιουσία και ελάτε για διακοπές.